A little while back, or what feels like a little while ago, we talked about costume jewelry and the possibilities you could achieve on the cheap. But what if you want something much nicer? What if it's an engagement ring or a commemorative piece that you want to withstand the test of time? That's when you need to talk to someone like my expert today. Welcome to the Just Dumb Enough podcast, a show that acknowledges no one is always an expert by dispelling misconceptions with real experts. I'm your host, as always, Colton Petrie. My guest today is Sonny Blaze. Sonny is a designer of some of the finest jewelry to ever grace A-list carpets. From rings to necklaces and off into categories you've never considered, Sonny has done it all in style without compromise. He's here today to inform all of us what it is we should be looking for in the most precious of minerals, diamonds. Really, the choice goes beyond a simple big or small. Do you want natural or synthetic? Clear or colored? And how can you buy it while being environmentally conscious, socially responsible, and still not decimating your bank account? All that and more coming right up. Let's get rocked. Welcome to the show, Sonny Blaze.
Hey, thank you for having me, Colton, the one and only Colton Petrie.
Hey, thanks for being on the show. I'm so excited to have you here. Why don't you kind of introduce yourself for the audience?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm Sonny Blaze. I'm a fine jewelry designer, uh, 30 years experience in the fine jewelry industry. I'm a designer and gemologist here in Beverly Hills. I live in Los Angeles technically, but a lot of my clients are from the Beverly Hills area.
Yeah, fantastic. So what got you into this? Like, where'd you get started?
Well, that's kind of funny. It's an accident in a lot of ways, and like I always say, the way to success is to Forrest Gump your way through it. You stumble into things. It's up to you to take advantage of those opportunities or see them as opportunities. So rewind. Um, I'm from Eastern Colorado, farm country. Now, my dad is a sheep shearer. I sheared sheep in the weekends and summertime, so made me a fourth generation sheep shearer from a line of sheep shearing families. Our upbringing was farm country, heating up water on the stove to take baths and stuff, and we grew up very, poor, but we didn't see it as poor. We saw it as this is our lifestyle. Uh, but again, we always look for opportunity to move forward. When I had really long hair back in the day, and I wanted to be in a band, so I moved to Denver. I was in a band, and this is where my first big break, you should say, not musically. We did have a great band. We almost got going, but I actually needed a job, like most musicians. We need a job, and the my drummer said, "Hey, my mom owns or co-owns a fine jewelry repair shop. All you got to do is deliver jewelry to the mall." And I'm like, "Okay, that's for me. Hanging out with chicks at the mall. How bad could it be?" Well, fast forward 30 years later, I just fell in love with the jewelry industry. And that's where I got started accidentally, just looking for a job. And that's how I got into it.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like probably quite the culture shock, even just to go from like where you lived to Denver was probably quite a change.
Yeah, I was in a graduating class of nine in Bethune, Colorado, seven girls, two guys. And so our high school, our entire school was from kindergarten to high school was 99 students. And so we were literally the smallest school in Colorado. And going from there to Denver was one big shock, but I was kind of ready for it. I needed to get out of the small town. The bigger shock was in 2001, actually. My now wife, we were engaged, and I said, I really want to advance. I, at that point, had been in the industry for 10 years, and I said, I've been in the shop for a long time, but I want to become more experienced. So she said, let's go to New York. And so, 2001. I find myself in Manhattan. So here I am looking around at the, New York City and thinking about growing up in Bethune, Colorado, population 183 or 185, whatever the last census was. And I'm like, there's literally more people on this subway car than in my entire hometown. So it was quite an adventure. But again, opened my eyes to opportunity. I'm like, wow, this is one of my favorite things to remember is the song "I Hope You Dance," because there's a lot of times in our lives when we see something happening and we're like, are we going to be bystanders or are we going to be involved in that? And there's when I was in New York, it was like, hey, listen, you know what? I can do this. They're just people just like me. Yes, uh, I've slept under a park bench with my entire family when we were traveling between jobs, But at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we start to see the inner soul of every other person. And I said, you know what? I can do this. And so my wife and I, just kind of tightened the belt and moved forward, and I became a gemologist, an expert in diamonds. And we'll get to the next chapter in a minute because I actually, being an artist, I was pursuing a career in expertise in diamonds. And so I became pretty good at it, but I knew that eventually that wasn't going to be my end career because I had an artistic soul and I was like, you know what? I'm not being very creative on the technical side of diamonds. So but yeah, that was the next big stop was New York City. So that's talk about culture shock.
Yeah, quite. And what kind of, is there a lot of like training or is it mostly kind of working in the field to become like a gemologist and to work with fine jewelry?
It's a combination actually, yeah, because traditionally a lot of diamond dealers and diamond specialists were in the Jewish community, Hasidic Jewish community, where you'd have people from Israel and other communities, people from Russia, places that had a lot of jewelry or diamond centric business lifestyles. So traditionally, you do get most of the training comes from your hands-on experience, but through the Gemological Institute of America, GIA, they actually developed these programs because they were the GIA, just to rewind again, actually created the standards that we all use globally. The D to Z color grading, for example, if you have a G color diamond, and then the flawless down to I3 internal clarity grading, all these standards of what we call the four C's, carat, clarity, color, and cut. These four C's were actually initially introduced by GIA way back when they needed to standardize the quality of a diamond in order to really improve the trust in the trade and improve consistencies and value of diamonds. So if from the beginning, GIA was always trying to make sure that the community and the industry was trained. And so in addition to the hands-on experience, they introduced these great programs like the graduate gemologist program, which is probably their most popular, which is the one I took. And that's where you get the most important and fundamental training for diamond expertise.
And it sounds like, there's quite a lot of very technical things when you're talking about like the grade, the clarity, the color. Is it kind of a simple, like, I had heard you say a couple of letters in there. Is it fairly simple to understand, or do you see most people get washed out in the terminology?
Yeah, people get really a little confused with it because it does get very technical. And since as far back as I can remember, the bottom line is working with someone you trust, because the industry has developed a lot of standards which people can follow. And so but there's so many different variables in terms of qualifying a diamond. So you can easily get into a rabbit hole of like you want to understand, okay, what is the color? Is it a G color down to a J color or whatever? What does that mean? And you can easily get caught up in all these different variables in the technical side of the diamond. And we forget that we're just buying it because it's beautiful, right? And so, but you want to make sure you're informed The most important thing is just getting in contact or working with a reputable jeweler, someone that you can trust, so that they can clearly explain to you what it is. And again, it just gonna depend on what you want to spend. Because yeah, if you want to get a D flawless, I just had a pair of diamonds that a client is going to have into earrings yesterday, and these diamonds are massive. They're like a 4.5 carat each, but they're D color, they're flawless, they're type 2A. We'll get into all that nonsense at another time, but they're this is the best of the best in the natural diamond. And the reality of seeing that with your naked eye, it's hard to look at it and go, I can see that difference. There's a very subtle, when you see them, you're like, oh my gosh, those are amazing. Uh, but a lot of times people buy those kinds of products because they want the absolute best, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to answer your question about the terminology, there is a lot of information. You can really dig deep into it. The reality is, though, just talk to a jeweler you trust and say, is this something that is good quality, bad? You can really generalize it, and the trusted jeweler will just say, hey, listen, don't worry about type 2A identification, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry about the refractive index and all this other stuff. It's beautiful. And here's a good, better, best option for you. What's good for your fit.
It's kind of one of those like, does it look really pretty to you? Is this
Yeah,
something you would like to wear?
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, going into, would you like to wear it in the fine jewelry industry? I have to assume there is a lot of trends, especially with how long you've been doing this, that you have seen come and go over the years.
Yes, we've seen a lot of trends come and go. There's some really important stays, or like they're kind of let's just say, for example, a Tiffany solitaire. Just simple prongs, thin band, and you got a nice big rock in the middle. That is kind of a legendary design that is going to be around forever. And I think that what happens is that people try to introduce some different styles around that. Back in the 80s and 90s, this is just as I was getting introduced into it, we would see a lot of bigger, chunky pieces, and and that really was allowing people to have a lot more metal along with their pieces. And then into the as we moved into the more recent years, we're looking at a little more dainty, and there's always going to be a little bit of influence depending on the not just the culture, but the artist or famous person. For example, several years ago, J-Lo got the pink diamond, and then pink diamonds were just the big craze, because her influence on the market was just, not only was her star power, but it was a beautiful concept that people didn't really think about. Oh wow, I never thought about a diamond that wasn't clear. You don't think about fancy color pinks, reds, greens, and everything else. We know about the Hope diamond a lot of times, but it doesn't always register that the Hope is a blue diamond, and you're like, wow, I didn't think about that. So these outside influences will sometimes make a major shift to shift to the more current trends. Blake Lively, when she received her the large oval diamond with a thin pave diamond band. When I say pave, that means the little tiny diamonds that are in the side. So it has a very delicate look. So there's a large center diamond and delicate stones around. That is probably the hottest trend right now in terms of the style, because they want all the attention. Again, going back to what I mentioned about the Tiffany Company Solitaire, Cartier did kind of a similar thing where they had the Cartier Solitaire, and they have the attention goes back to the center stone, and what is holding it is just minimalized. And so now we're going back, and we're going to continue to see those waves. We're going to go into like very ornate, and we're going to go back to simplified. We're going to go very ornate, back to simplified. It just kind of goes in waves. And so right now we're looking at a very delicate micropave, thin, delicate, feminine band with a large center stone.
I mean, it's interesting, even someone like myself, where I have, no roots of any kind in the fine jewelry field at all. I remember like a decade ago, there were commercials just every every channel, every time of the day, where you would see like, chocolate diamonds, and that
Yes.
was the thing. And I'm like, I haven't heard of a chocolate diamond in a decade.
Yep. Yep. And there was a big push for that because again, what they wanted to do is, and rightfully so, we're always looking for something that's new and fresh. So when the pink diamonds came out, all of a sudden there was awareness of, oh wow, there's diamonds other than clear. And so then in that around that same time, prior and after, we started to talk about the champagne or chocolate diamonds because there was number one, another option aside from clear diamonds, and number two, the chocolate diamonds actually have a lower cost. So people are actually going to be able to save money by getting into like a chocolate diamond type of thing, which was really a plus, a win-win for the client and for the industry, I should say, because the jeweler is able to offer something at a lower cost, and the client is getting something unique and different at a lower cost. And we're kind of heading into that same idea right now with lab grown diamonds because we're again seeing a major push in an alternative to what we're used to.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that. But real quick, I wanted to see, is there any like any trends? Obviously we've covered, there's quite a change and there always will be changing, right? Because people
Right.
want to see, what's fresh, what's new, what's a neat take on something we haven't seen. Is there anything that's been like really stable inside the jewelry community?
Well, there's always going to be a bit of a like a base standard of consistency, like the diamond solitaire, diamond stud earrings. Those are kind of staples that every woman, for far back as I can think and as far forward as I could probably imagine, there's going to be a draw for the simple, keep it simple, KISS, keep it simple, stupid, we're we can keep it some of those trends going forever because there will always be a place for them. And in the industry, again, we're going to talk a little bit more about lab grown diamonds, but naturals and lab grown will always have a place in the industry as well. Think about it this way. It was really like 6,000 BC. I don't even know how far back. I forget the exact date. I don't know if they have the exact date, but jewelry and basically self ornate bejeweling ourselves as a human species, we've been doing it since the beginning of time. So we are always going to find a way to put something on us, whether it's earrings, whether it's a pendant, whether it's a bracelet, whether it's a ring. There's always going to be something that we're going to want to adorn ourselves with as a human being. And so that being said, even if it's not necessarily a diamond, for the foreseeable future, there's always going to be something that we're going to want to adorn ourselves with. And I feel that diamonds in general, given their nature, are going to be one of the consistencies. And thank God for the standards. Speaking of, stability and standards, the Responsible Jewelers Council in the UK, they actually have members like the Jewelers of America, Gemological Institute of America, Cartier, all these major companies in the world. It's a global council, and they are set to release in 2024 standards for representing lab-grown diamonds. And so there's always going to be certain companies that are going to help to inform the client and inform the industry on what standards we should hold to each other responsible for. And I think that when we get into the standards and longevity of jewelry industry, we can always be sure that diamonds above all are going to be held at a very strict standard. So we can always, that's why I believe diamonds are always going to be a standard in the industry because they're the ones most regulated. And so you can trust it for that reason.
Yeah, certainly. And jewelry's not going anywhere. Even me, like I said, not involved at all in the field. I have had the privilege at one point in my life to hold jewelry that was from 3500 BC. So it's
Yeah,
like that's almost 6,000 years ago right there.
right.
I'm like, it's not going anywhere.
Yep.
But we do get to see these really fascinating advances like a lab-grown diamond, which I assume is something that we can now just kind of like synthesize, diamond.
hmm And it's a really right now we're in a win-win situation with the industry. Again, kind of like we saw with for a brief period, of course, of chocolate diamonds, but now we're in a much more uh, sustainable win-win situation because think about it this way, is now you're getting a diamond, so the sentimental value of giving your engagement person or a gift or gifting yourself something that is a real diamond and you have the sentimental value there. Now you can offer that at a much lower cost uh, because it's a lab grown diamond. And I know this gets a little bit, the waters get a little murky here because yes, you're getting a low cost product and the jeweler is actually making some money on it too because they're getting it at a low cost so they can actually make a little profit on it. Whereas natural diamonds is very tight margin. When companies started selling like crazy online, probably a decade ago, it became very challenging for your normal brick and mortar stores to compete because all of a sudden the price of the diamond started to get squeezed. So you're paying very high prices for something you can sell for just a little bit over. So in terms of the jewelry industry, there was getting a lot of squeeze from online retailers of natural diamonds. Now with lab grown, you're getting a low cost product uh, that you can sell for a reasonable price, and so clients are really thrilled to get a really great price on a piece, and they're getting a real diamond, and the jewelry industry is making a little bit of a profit on it. So that's great. It's a win-win. But we'll talk a little bit more about the future of that.
Well, yeah, and if I mean somebody like me or, the random person off the street came in and you handed them one of each, like a natural diamond cut out of the earth and a lab-grown diamond, would we be able to tell the difference?
There's no way. There's no way to tell without special equipment. That's the bottom line. With a magnification, now again, the technology keeps improving. So every day we see some improvements and changes. Right now we're getting almost to I don't like to use the word perfection because that's just that's always a subjective term to use. But the laboratory process is really reaching a perfection, which is kind of a good thing and a bad thing because some of the imperfections we see in diamonds help us to identify their authenticity. So when you get a perfect diamond that's like say D color, which is basically no color, flawless, which means there's nothing on it or inside it, you're looking at a flawless diamond and you can't find anything to identify it technically visually. So you have to use other tools to identify it. So we're in a situation right now where lab grown diamonds are in a really high quality specimens. And so when you look at it, there's nothing there to really separate it from a natural high quality diamond. You'd have to do some additional testing. Now there are again, just as quickly as diamonds are advancing in their manufacturing properties and equipment, there's also testing equipment that's also kind of growing along with it. So we're starting to see more equipment being introduced to the industry that we can use. There's a multi-tester, for example, where not to get too crazy technical again, but the thermal conductivity of a diamond is very unique. So you may have been at a jewelry store and you see them pull out this little pin thing and they poke the diamond and they're like seeing and it lights up and it's like, okay, that's a real diamond. They say, well, we use a diamond tester. What that does is measures the thermal conductivity of the diamond. But when synthetic moissanite came out, they had this similar crystal structure. And so the diamond tester was getting confused. It's like, well, it thinks it's a diamond because the thermal conductivity was the same as a diamond. So they had to create another tester to separate the two. Now there's a third tester that separates lab grown, natural, and moissanite. And so we will continually find tools to help. I know it's a long answer to your question, but you can't tell from putting them side by side, looking at it with your eye, even under magnification, it's very tricky to see. But there are definitely a lot of tools that you can use. And again, it comes back to your trusted jeweler. Um, just so you know, the Federal Trade Commission does have standards for anybody in the U.S. in particular to identify and disclose So you can't, if you go to a jeweler and they say, well, this one's not certified, you don't worry about that nonsense, blah, blah, blah. I probably wouldn't trust that guy because you don't know what you're getting. Uh, Usually, in any significant size diamond, when I say significant size, anything over half a carat, um, particularly in the 1 carat, 2 carat range, it's going to have a laser inscription, which is super tiny on the diamond itself, which identifies it as lab grown, or it'll identify it as with a certified number. Um, and that's what I would strongly recommend to make sure that your diamond is certified and identified before you purchase it, especially if you're going to be spending anything above, like, say, $5,000 or any really price that you're looking at something significant for you. If a $2,000 purchase is significant for you, which it is for me sometimes, is you want to make sure you have all the answers. It's totally okay for you to ask the jeweler, hey, listen, is that one certified? I want to make sure I buy something certified, even at that price range. Definitely, you can request something certified, so that it's been identified. So that way, you don't have to go through the whole practice of, okay, now I got to test it. Now I got to figure out what it is. If it's certified, you're golden.
It's definitely one of those like technology advances because it must, where you're like,
Yes,
we didn't have a need for this technology to differentiate, diamonds, moissanite, and lab grown before because they weren't around.
right.
And you're like, oh, great. Well, now we have them. We got to figure something out.
Well, I want to chime in on something interesting about the timeline, because the lab grown diamonds aren't really all that new. Actually, it was way back, the synthetic synthesizing process started way back at the turn of the last century, in 1900 or so. And the biggest challenge is getting a good quality diamond. And so there was a couple of things. They couldn't make them big enough to be really usable. The technology advanced. They finally got into a really good rhythm. Really, it was probably about 20 years ago, where they were making some pretty good size and good quality lab grown diamonds. However, the the industry wasn't really taking to it. They're like, well, those are lab grown. They're synthetics. They're not really, and they are real diamonds, but people wanted the thing out of the ground. And I'll explain in a couple minutes why. Number one is the technology was there, but the industry wasn't really embracing it. Think about it this way: if you were able to take a dinosaur bone, now let's just suspend reality like Jurassic Park for a second, okay? We're gonna suspend reality. You could take a a dinosaur bone, and make a synthetic version of it. Just take the DNA of something from a billion years ago, and just rebuild a bone that looks, feels, and literally has the same chemical or DNA structure as a dinosaur bone. Okay. And you make 1,000 of them. Let's say you can print one, you can make one every once a week. So now you've got like 1,000 of these bones, and you put them all in these museums, and you tell people that it's a real dinosaur bone. It was just rebuilt through a synthesized process. Now, take the one bone that was actually found in the ground from a billion years ago, and you put that one in a museum. And now you have all these bones in these different museums. Which museum do you think is going to get the most attention? I mean, yeah. If you can't go to the one museum that has the bone that was a billion years old, you go to the other one to see, hey, I can see exactly what it was like. I can see it. I know that I can actually even study it. But it's still not, even though it is a real bone, it's still not the one that came out of the ground. And that's the big difference between lab grown and natural diamond. Yes, it is real, chemically, optically, physically. It doesn't have the same mystique about it, because it didn't come out of the ground from a billion years ago. It just, somebody made it last week. And so that's where the big challenge was early on. But now that it's shifting, because COVID, for example, had a major impact on, as we all know, economically. We had to rethink how we spend our money. And we're like, well, we still want to buy diamonds, but we can't afford them, right? people don't know this, but the the war in Ukraine actually put us in a position with Russia that caused a lot of issues. 30% of the diamonds that America was consuming were coming from Russia. So, of course, President Biden banned those diamonds and said we're no longer going to receive those. So that actually caused some strain on the natural diamond industry. So all these imports. And so now, so there was a lot of, again, a win-win. We're not going to support Russia. We're not going to, we don't want to buy these diamonds that are coming out of the ground where people are like fighting civil wars and kids are digging them up and there's inhumane, environments that they're working in. So we're going to buy these lab-grown diamonds that are sustainable. They're more friendly to the environment, and they're more friendly to the people that are developing them, and they're a much lower cost. It's a win-win. So it just there's so many different variables that will impact where we are now, and so that's why we're now seeing a spike because there's a lot of positivity behind lab-grown diamonds.
Yeah, it's very much trying to balance, having this enormous history of this billion-year-old diamond that you dug out of the earth with its present history of like, where did this come from? Is it ethical to own this thing?
Right.
Versus like, oh, it's not old because it was just made in a lab, but it's also very pretty and there's no like stigma on it.
Yep. Yep. Now the thing about um, I want to talk a little bit about the stigma on it, but more importantly, the stigma on the natural diamonds. And it's a very challenging thing. I love the movie Blood Diamonds with Leonardo DiCaprio because it's very true, very honest. But I do want to caution the audience too about looking into that film in terms of in a broad scope. I wouldn't paint the industry with with such a broad swipe here because first of all, that in Sierra Leone back in the mid '90s, that was really happening. There was a lot of civil war unrest and abuse of the industry, and that still exists in the world, but to that degree, not so much. There's a lot of things that have been put in place actually to help curb a lot of those things that were going on. So people might think, "Oh gosh, I saw blood diamonds," and yeah, the industry is like that everywhere. You go to Canada, wherever you go, they're mining diamonds, and these little kids are digging them up, and all this other stuff, and people are getting their hands cut off, and blah blah blah. It's not happening everywhere, nowhere even close. Uh, there are some of those African countries, like in the Congo or the some of those Botswana, some of these countries that do have some kind of marginal behavior, but we've introduced. I say we because I'm in the industry, but not me personally. We, Sonny Blaze, and the rest of the industry, introduced several years ago was the Kimberley process, which is basically a way for countries to be held accountable. Say, hey, listen, did you fund a civil war with these diamonds? And they have to literally certify, no, we have not. And so they, okay, now you can trade them in the U.S. So the vast majority, by far, of the diamonds that come into the U.S. are conflict free. If you were to go to Africa and go to like Botswana and buy a diamond in a shop there, you would maybe be a little bit more concerned about maybe the history behind it. Where did it come from? Did it fund some industry that was supporting in conflict or civil war? So we think about number one, the political side of it, but we can rest assured that the natural diamonds in the U.S. and like the UK, all the major industries that are what we'd call like a civilized community, say it's like in the UK or Japan, they're going to be definitely they're going to be protecting their consumers by making sure the diamonds aren't coming from. Like I said, as soon as the war broke out with Ukraine, they were already having talks about, well, we got to figure out the situation with the diamonds, so they cut off Russia because they say we can't provide support for these types of countries because of what they're involved in. And so the industry does make an effort, no, not perfect, does make an effort to protect the consumer. And speaking of children, this is also very difficult situation, and I know firsthand. As when I was a kid, I'd go help my parents out on the farm and working, we're shearing sheep and all this other stuff at a young age, and so for me, it was kind of normal life. And I'm not going to compare myself to someone in Sierra Leone. It's a 15, 13-year-old that's over there digging for diamonds, right? Because that's a very serious situation and hardship that this child is going through. They're in really bad, they're in really bad home life, but they will not eat if they don't find diamonds. That's the truth. And then some countries, there's no other industry for them. They can't just quit their mining job and go work at Subway. It's just not there. And a lot of times the parents or the other family members don't have either their health is not giving them the ability, or they don't have the opportunity to do what they do. So in some of these cases where we look at these children, oh my gosh, there's these little kids are out there digging diamonds. It's like, oh yeah, but if they don't have that, they don't eat. And that's it. And that's no excuse for bad governing, because bad governing does really put it to these kids. Sometimes the government in some of these countries does not take care of their people. And we can't blame the child or the jewelry industry for bad governing. It's really what it comes down to. And so those are two of the reasons why we have to kind of, in a way, suspend reality a little bit for a second to see the bigger picture of what's happening in the natural diamond industry. But, we can look at it in a bunch of different ways. So, but let's talk about happy thoughts, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of these, very economically poor countries that, they don't have the opportunity that a lot of us do. And it takes a very conscious effort from an industry like this where, you could potentially make a larger profit if you use, a product that you pay much less for. But for the industry at large, like you said, not everybody, but most people, to say, like, hey, we are only going to purchase and use conflict-free diamonds. Like, we can't be a part of this. We recognize that, it's an unfortunate part of that lifestyle of the place they are, but we just can't take part in it. Like, that's a very conscious and very positive effort to say, like, we need change.
Yes, absolutely. And the wonderful thing about the changes that we've seen is, again, the lab-grown diamonds and the certification process with the Kimberly process for natural diamonds, they're giving us a lot more comfort in having options for clients. Because I have no problems if a client says, "Hey, listen, I'd rather go with a lab-grown because I know that it hasn't gone through, or there's no risk of it coming through, this through any conflict means." And I think that's great. I think it's fine for a client to go there. I personally like the natural diamonds just because of I have a passion for the history and the purity. There's some lore that really goes into this. When you think about an engagement ring, for example, and I know this might sound like a sales pitch, but I honestly do believe this. When I'm giving or talking to a client about an engagement ring, I say, listen, the diamond is basically 100% or 99.999% carbon. Platinum is, if you have a platinum band that's it says platinum 950, that means it's 95% platinum, and the other 5% is iridium or ruthenium, which is basically a platinum family element. So that is used as a hardener to help, keep the ring from bending too much, because platinum is fairly malleable. So when you're talking about, basically you're wearing a ring that's three elements: carbon, crystallized carbon, platinum, and ruthenium. That's it. That is almost as pure as you can get in a product. If you're talking about a 14 karat ring, that's only 54.5% gold. The rest of it is different alloys and metals. If you're talking about a sapphire, it's corundum, which is going to be a few different elements combined to make a sapphire. So when you think about the purity of your love and the purity of what this symbolizes, that's why I always lean towards the diamond platinum solitaire, because it's as pure as you can get as a symbol of your purity. And again, that's only if you're kind of really romantic about the whole thing. If you want just something pretty, that's nothing wrong with that. It's just, that's just the way I see it. That's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, of course, it's that personal preference. Like, if you lean very heavy towards one thing, you're like, oh, I want gold just because, whatever the history is with gold that you have that's special to you. Like, great, get gold. You can find it, it's out there. Versus, like, oh, I want something very clean, very minimalistic. And you're like, this thing is literally three elements. That's it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And it's easy to overthink it. And getting back to the Forrest Gumping our way through things. We do have a tendency to kind of overthink things. I have a tendency to overthink things and really dig into some of the details and the science behind some of these things. At the end of the day, is it beautiful? Does it match my personality? That's what matters. Can I afford it? Am I being reasonable about what I'm giving? Because there's a lot of things that we can really overlook. I mean, again, it's about a symbolizing. If you're giving a gift or you're gifting yourself, you want something that really you want to honor and love for a long time. So we need to think about the durability and something that really is beautiful. And that's why diamonds a lot of times really just fit the bill, because they're durable, they're beautiful, and they really are gonna stand the test of time in most cases. Well, the diamond itself, I should say, will always stand the test of time. The design, for most part, a lot of them are pretty timeless. But every now and then, I had long hair back in the 80s, and if it was some of these fashion trends with the big poofy hair, you're kind of like, well, maybe I'm glad that went by.
Yeah.
Because imagine if it was permanent, I'd be here with the big poofy hair right now. Like, yeah, I would just don't worry about my hair. I got Aquanet from head to toe right now. So
Yeah, absolutely. And there's this timeless aspect not only to the material, but the way we viewed it, where we're like, oh, your diamond engagement ring, your wedding ring, whatever it is, like that is kind of the standard where we're like, hey, this is what most people use, I guess, to generalize to say like this is what you buy for your wedding ring. Is there a difference? Because I know there was always the old saying, and I don't even know the month standard, where they were like, oh, 1, 2, 3 months of your salary, whatever it was, to buy the ring. Would you notice that difference between like a natural diamond and a lab grown because of the price difference of a lab grown? Would you like visibly see how much bigger it is?
absolutely, that is one of the biggest issues right now. I don't want to say issue. It's one of the biggest factors, because again, it's a good thing. Uh, Clients are getting much bigger diamonds for the price of, and I jotted down the stat here somewhere, but I don't think I have it in front of me at the moment. But basically, what we're looking at is probably a 1 carat diamond is comparable to maybe a 4 carat lab grown, or 5 carat lab grown. So the sizes are like, this and this. It's like really noticeable difference for the same price. Now, in terms of pricing, the standard of 3 months salary, or that kind of thing, that's going to be up to the individual. The industry, really would like to keep people on that trend. And here's the reason why. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm selling the idea, but this is really one of the things I truly believed I truly believe still when I was talking to clients about engagement rings. One guy came in and he was like, well, it's so small. I don't want to spend more than like 2 or 3 grand. It's like, okay, that's fair enough. I get it. You want to spend it. Let me just ask you this. How much was your truck? He's like, well, it's like $45,000. It's like, well, are you going to have that truck in 10 years still? Are you gonna buy another one? I mean, what about your TV? At the time, big screen TVs were probably like 3 grand. Are you going to have that same TV in 5 years? Or let's say, what about let's say your house? Yeah, you're going to spend like $1 million on a house, but is that house going to be standing in 200 years? So there's all these different products that we just dump money into, even though they don't have the longevity. A diamond is going to really be around for centuries. because it's so the band itself may eventually wear down, but the diamond itself is not going to really ever go anywhere unless you really hammer it with destroy it with a hammer. It's probably going to maintain its same quality and shape and everything else for hundreds of years. But there's still this psychology, and the guy was like, well, yeah, but I need my truck, and TV, I can watch it. The diamond is just kind of just a little thing. I said, but you know what? The thing is that she doesn't see it that way. And more importantly, what it symbolizes, what is she worth to you? Because at the end of the day, you're making the most significant statement. It should be anyway. I want to marry you. You're making the most significant statement in your life. And so you want that to be one of the most significant purchases to represent that. In my book, again, that's a romanticized version of why I think it's important. And that's also why lab grown diamonds are still going to have a lot of value, because it's what it symbolizes that matters, and the longevity that you're going to have with the product. So at the end of the day, you have to decide, hey, listen, what am I willing to spend to make a statement like this? And yeah, just it's hard to push somebody into a major purchase like this. So you kind of have to be comfortable with it yourself.
Of course, and it's extremely romantic, the thought of being like, I want our love to be symbolized by this diamond that is going to be, nearly eternal. Like, I want
Hmm.
that same thing for us. I want us to be in love forever. And that's extremely romantic. So I absolutely understand the idea. Like, I wouldn't argue any of that at all. I think it's great, but it's also very much like, you know, what is you? Like you said, what really draws you in? Does it need to be absolutely flawless? Does it need to be crystal clear? Or do you want something that's a different color? Are you, would you prefer a ton of smaller ones that kind of ring the entire ring? Or do you want like one big stone? It's very personal, I guess, these decisions, and it kind of, like you said, you have to trust the person helping you, where you're like, hey, I have no idea what I'm looking for. Please help me.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think it's always great to find a good jeweler in your area or someone that you can trust and have a conversation with them, because most retailers are going to really they want you to be happy. And so they're going to do whatever they can to make sure that you fully understand and know what you're getting into, because the last thing they want is to feed you a line and then have you come back a month later being all angry. It's like, I can't believe what I got. Right? They want you to be happy and forever. And so they want you to be informed. And so it's important to find a trustworthy, conversational place where you can literally sit down and have a conversation and say, listen, okay, tell me a little bit more about what I'm getting into here and why. Because it is a very important purchase. When I'm talking more about engagement rings, but in most products, it's any fine jewelry is usually a significant purchase. It's an important gift, because we're talking in the thousands when you're talking fine jewelry. If it's costume jewelry, then it's just something you're buying for yourself or something you're buying as a gift, to symbolize a birthday or something special, but not necessarily a high value of significance. And so, just to clarify, when I'm talking fine jewelry, I'm talking usually pieces that are made within precious metals like silver, gold, platinum, and precious stones such as diamonds, sapphires, rubies, etc. When I'm talking costume jewelry, we're talking about something that's gold plated or something that's like just a chrome plated and it's got like rhinestones in it or something like that, or glass stones. And they look beautiful. Again, technology is really coming up where you're seeing some really beautiful costume jewelry pieces. And there's nothing wrong with those. It's just that, again, it just a matter what you're comfortable with and how important is it for you to make a statement with that piece as well. When someone, because the biggest difference between costume and fine jewelry is going to be the longevity. Because if you have something that's chrome plated or something that's like made out of plated gold, eventually it will wear. The glass beads are going to get scratched up, they're going to break, they're going to scuff, they're going to be dull within months. And so they're going to change color. So the biggest difference is going to be the biggest factor in their value is their longevity and how they wear. Fine jewelry typically will last a lot longer than anything that's made, at least visibly. It'll even if the costume piece of jewelry stays together for 100 years, it's going to be beat to hell. So, you know,
Yeah, it goes back to that, like, the idea of I want our love to be timeless, so I got you diamond. Well, I want this birthday to be exactly 1 year, so I got you costume jewelry.
exactly. Yeah, well, it's okay if it dies within a year. Well, because but I'll get you another one with your next birthday. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's this, I think when people think fine jewelry, there's a very limited scope people kind of look through. Their lens is like, oh, it means rings, earrings, necklaces. And that's not true at all because I just saw one of yours recently as we were emailing that is actually the cover to an in-ear audio. And I'm like,
Yes.
that's really cool.
Yeah. We've introduced something called Coda. I'm actually wearing right now, and what it is, the one I'm wearing is actually a solid silver with 18 karat. Now I can't get it back on because I can't see. Um, But basically, what it is solid 18 solid silver with 18 karat inlay. And what we've done, we've taken these ultimate ear in-ear monitors, which are used by everyone from Taylor Swift on down. These are top end in-ear monitors for stage performers, primarily musicians and singers, but they are used also in studios and other places. And years ago, we're going back now to 2015 or so. I was like, hey, why are they putting again? They're putting like little rhinestones or different color things there. Why don't they put the diamonds or something special on there, you know? And so I finally connected with Ultimate Ears Pro, and I said, well, let's do something special. And so we developed the first and only interchangeable faceplate on a top tier monitor, and we've also introduced diamonds and precious metal, which was really not really done before. And so now, again, talking about it's got to match you, right? The fine jewelry industry can be broad. It can be watches. It can be other things. This is the newest, latest thing. And Eric Church is one of my favorite clients. He is an incredible musician. If anybody knows country music, they know Eric Church. He's one of the foremost, I mean, established country artists next to George Strait and some of those guys. And he is not a jewelry guy at all. He doesn't even wear his wedding ring when he plays live. He has like a badge on a necklace because his grandfather was the chief of police, and so he inherited the nickname Chief. So when I was talking to his camp, I was like, well, let's see what we can do. And so I actually came up with this design that matched his personality and he just loved it. He even ordered a second one to have on his tour, and that's all he uses typically. So if you watch the CMTs, the Country Music Award shows, or any of his live performance, you'll see his in-ear silver with black diamond accent. And the thing is that with these in-ear monitors and the Coda faceplates, we've taken fine jewelry, and again, we're not people like to use the word bling. I hate that word because it's not blingy bedazzled.
Yeah.
We've actually enhanced it into something that fits you, and it has a high value because it's no longer plastic. Now it's something worthy of a $2,000 pair of headphones, you know? So yeah, we've taken that and introduced a new trend, which we'll see. It's so brand new that we'll see how things start to pan out in terms of other artists. We're seeing a lot of hip hop artists now starting to wear them. Sweetie and Usher, a couple of my clients as well, and so we see a lot more diamonds in their pieces. And I just did one for a guy that works for a gaming company, and his are, of course, a lot more understated, but kind of a distressed kind of look. And so it's really, again, it's about fitting your personality and fitting what you want out of your style.
And just, so many ways to do it, especially.
Yeah,
Are there, as we're looking to the future, I know I've kept you a while and I've
that's
appreciated
okay.
your time immensely. As you look to the future, do you see, any major changes or any new products that you're like, oh, when this is ready, it's going to be extremely cool?
Yeah, Ed, that is a really tricky question, and we would love to have the crystal ball to see what's going to be hot, and who knows? There's going to be a handful of things that are going to come out that'll probably surprise us. I honestly don't know. Right now, lab grown diamonds is the hottest thing. Using them in different places, using them in different colors is going to be. Again, we saw the champagne and chocolate diamonds back in the day because they were offering this different concept. I would imagine that colored diamonds, whether in the reds, blues, orange, are going to start to make another impact. What I started to see most recently in some of the more obscure kind of trends is enameled or colored metals and jewelry. I know that back in gosh, in the 30s and 40s, we did see a lot of enamel work, but this is a different type of enameling where people want to see bright colors. People want to introduce something other than just the white diamonds. So these are some of the trends we're keeping a close eye on because adding more color is probably going to come back probably very soon. How long that will last, I don't know, because I do see that the clear diamonds are always going to have an impact and a high value in the industry. But I think right now, Coda is the only thing that I can think of that's really unique, and we'll see how that goes.
That's right. I can't wait to get to a point where I can expense some for the studio. I'll get rid of the over-ear
That's
headphones
right.
and I'll go to the
That's
in-ear
right.
codas. Well, Sonny, thank you so much for being on the show. Like I said, I've appreciated your time immensely. I wanted to give you some time where if people want to look you up and find you and find more of what you do, they have the ability.
That's right. Sonnyblaze.com is my website. Yeah, you can follow me. I do a lot. I like to really follow a lot of people and take a look at Instagram. So for if you want to follow me on Instagram, that would be fantastic and see some of the new things that I'm working on. And I want to just say that yes, it's like when in our lives we are always faced with this kind of sum up my career. Somebody said once, luck is just a matter of opportunity meeting preparation. And I like to share this little hypothetical story. It's like if there's a dollar bill on the street, right? You're not going to come across that dollar bill unless you go out into the world. If you go out for a walk, go out there, get yourself out there, then you might stumble across an opportunity. But then when you see the dollar bill on the sidewalk, you can't just keep walking. You have to grab it. So when you see an opportunity, you have to grab it. And so that's what you do. First, you get out there, then you grab the opportunity, and then you will see that you've gained something. And that's how we succeed in our lives, really, is we actually get out there, we see an opportunity, we seize the moment, and move to the next chapter.
Yeah, a fantastic message. Thank you again for being here.
Yeah. Thanks, Colton. Great to see you. We'll see you again.
I really hope this saves someone out there a truly ridiculous amount of time and money. Like, buy a synthetic diamond the size of a finger, and then buy your, hopefully, favorite podcaster lunch. I know I'll sure appreciate it, even if your fiance to be does not. August is over, halfway gone already, and here's some updated rankings. Number 1, the United States, now led by Oregon, New Jersey, and California. Number 2, the United Kingdom, overtaking Canada on the way to number 2 and led by England. Number 3, Hong Kong, showing up in a big way all of a sudden. Welcome to the top 3, HK. Number 4, Ontario, Canada. And number 5, Australia, barely holding on to a top spot, all thanks to Queensland. That's it for this week. Have a great week, and I'll see you all back here for the next episode. Until the next episode, please do all those things that help the show, like rating, reviewing, liking, and subscribing. Reach out to dumbenoughpodcast@gmail.com or on any of the social media pages if you want to reach me personally. Most importantly, stay dumb.